Hello and welcome to Series 2 of Hockey Hypothetical. Serious answers to silly questions. Each episode we will be taking preposterous scenarios that we've made up from the world of hockey and trying to produce genuine responses to the what-if questions. My name is Jonathan Fernley, I'm here with Stephen Dowson, and Douse, here's our first Hockey Hypothetical. Which rule would you like ice hockey to introduce that's directly borrowed from another sport? So we're not making a rule up, we're just borrowing one that exists from another sport and dropping it straight into our rule book.
Yeah, we'll give it back at the end. Interesting. Also, how nice, we've got a season 2. Lovely.
We have.
Right, so when I was thinking about this, the first thing that actually came up wasn't actually a rule for the game. It was actually a rule for how the game is scored, how the game is valued almost. And because in British ice hockey and in other ice hockey leagues, you get 2 points for a win. And I think that's naff. I think a win is far more valuable. And it's certainly worth double than a draw. And the reason I come to this is because you always talk about big Premier League games. The relief when a team at the bottom gets 3 big, precious points is always a huge talking point. And I don't think it's as valuable in ice hockey just to get the 2. And I know it might just be psychological. It might just be, many leagues wouldn't change positions, all the rest of it. But I just feel 2 points doesn't reward a win enough.
What it also does is provide a little bit of extra drama to the last 4 or 5 minutes of a close game. Because if you are winning by a goal and you concede, well, okay, that's really frustrating, but you're getting an overtime point at the very least. But if it goes from 3 points down to 1, that seems like a much bigger drop it is. And I know it's like loss aversion is always... they've proved it psychologically, it's loss aversion is better than winning. So I think the threat of losing 3 points as well adds a bit of extra tension to the game, not just the potential bonus of earning them through victory.
Yeah, because if you lose it in the last 30 seconds, you obviously gut it. But you go, well, we got at least half a point. We got half the points available, But yeah, you lose it in the last minute in a football game. Well, you've just dropped 2 points. And if you're a struggling team, that's huge. If you're the team that's leading, that's huge. It feels bigger. Yeah, and I know, like I say, there's lots of analysis to say that if you switch leagues from 2 points to 3 points, it wouldn't change too much. But so I think... You go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, are you going to a 3-2-1, or is it just 3 points for any victory?
Yeah, now you see that brings in, should overtime count less because then the team couldn't get it done, so therefore doesn't get 3 points outright. So do you get 2 for winning an overtime and then 1 for basically lasting the whole game, essentially? I don't know how I feel about that either, because again, it would make overtime feel that much more important. It's already very exciting, with 3-on-3 hockey and then the shootout. But again, how much more exciting would it be to win the extra 2 points rather than the extra point? My only worry about that is the loss of 2 points, the feeling of like you've lost 2 points, might make teams play a little bit more defensively. Which... But for me, I think it would be well outweighed by the scale of how victory would feel, how good victory would feel when you get 3 points. I mean, we are both supporting a struggling team at the moment. When we get 2 points, great. But getting 3 points for those wins would feel just better. You would feel like you're on the right track. And I think for fans, it would be a huge boost, especially for those teams down at the bottom.
The law of diminishing returns has got to kick in at some point. Is it at 4 points for a win?
Well, you said I could only steal it from another sport, and I don't know many sports that give 4 for a win, unless you do, because this is kind of your area. And I think the reason why we've settled on 3 is because we've said, look, 1 point for a draw, well done, you lasted the whole game. So how big of an advantage is winning? It is 3 times an advantage, isn't it? You know, getting a point is something, getting nothing is horrible, but winning is 3 times as good. It doesn't feel twice as good when you win compared to a draw. It definitely feels 3 times as good, and depending on the game, it can feel 100 times as good.
How about some of the bonus point systems that other sports have introduced?
Oh, you mean like cricket?
Well, yeah, in terms of, you get batting points and bowling points. In rugby union, an extra point for 4 tries, or if you lose, as long as you keep it close, you get a point. Could we sort of have that in hockey? If you win your game by 4 goals, you get an extra point.
Or what about saves? Because remember that amazing, was it Garrett Zemlak performance up in Nottingham?
Yes.
Where how many saves did he make? It was an outrageous number.
It was either it was in the 60s or 70s.
Yeah.
But he then let in 2 out of 3 in the shootout,
yeah.
so,
And ultimately, all that got him was a point. That feels like it should be worth a point. If your goalie makes over 50 saves, you get a point. Mind you, that's a good excuse for defences just to disappear. But you know what? If you've worked that hard...
Oh, yeah, you're going to take that risk, aren't you?
Yeah, maybe
let's just let them shoot at us
yeah,
for a
that's
point.
True. That's true. But, because, netminders... The only kind of credit... netminders get a lot of credit, but the only time they get that kind of public acknowledgement is when they get a shutout and they get the man of the match. But, look at Zemlak. That was an incredible effort. Surely that was worth a point.
Here's something that was on my mind in terms of the penalties that are currently in place. I don't think other sports necessarily have any of the penalty calls that we would like, but it's the punishment for those penalties.
All right.
In hockey, a player can pick up a game misconduct and essentially be ejected, sent off, disqualified, whichever term you want to use from another sport.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to play most of the rest of the game with all your players. If you're sent off, why is your team not shorthanded for the rest of the game? If it's that egregious that we've got to kick him out of the game, why are we not punishing the team for the rest of the game?
Oh, you mean so what you're talking about here is permanent ejections. If somebody gets ejected, that team is down to 4 outfield skaters.
For the rest of the game, yeah.
Oh, that would be... You see, the problem I have with that...
For the most egregious and awful and deliberate checks to the head, checks from behind, boarding calls, all the ones that are, injury causers and potential career enders. 5-minute power play. Well, that's great. We're already 3-0 up. How does that help us? I just feel that 5 minutes sometimes isn't enough of a punishment, particularly when there's 45 minutes of the game left to go.
My only problem with that is in some cases that would be the end of the game, wouldn't it? It would end the game as a contest. Only having 5... a permanent power play. I don't know how fun that would be to watch. But I do kind of understand, you do see penalties and you go, yeah, okay, they've lost the guy, but the guy they've lost was the knucklehead they've been carrying around for the last 6 months, who was contributing offensively as much as a blancmange. Doesn't really help that he's not on the ice anymore, because he wasn't really on the ice for anything other than to hurt us.
There are other rules that I think would be interesting. I would love to see some kind of blocking legally allowed. Because at the moment, if you get in someone's way, stepping across their line, hold them up, it's interference. I'd like to think that, perhaps on the power play maybe, a bit of interference from the offence is okay. So
getting a lead blocker for the breakaway.
Blocker someone. Yeah, you can send someone in to just plough through that defenceman. Or you can have someone just skate right through the crease and wipe out that D-man, or whatever you need to do.
I'm pretty sure that's what the Flying V is meant to do, isn't it? In the Mighty Ducks universe, the Flying V creates a lead blocker scenario, and then you can pass the puck between yourselves and then score.
But it's the NFL playoffs at the moment. I've watched a lot of NFL. I've seen a lot of great blocking and pass protecting. I thought, hockey players have pads. They could get in each other's way.
They do. I tell you what, speaking of American sports, the one that my wife came up with, actually, when we were talking about this, was, you know, she is American, and this concept of drawing, of getting anything for failing, is particularly alien to her. And she goes, why don't you just have win-loss? You know, make it nice and simple and straightforward, have a win-loss record, and then you know who the best and who the worst is. And then it's always for all the marbles. Did you get it into overtime and lost in the penalty shootout? Oh well, you still lost. You should have won. And I was thinking about that for a long time, because unlike most American or North American sports, beg your pardon, hockey has always used that league formula. The NBA has. Whereas the NFL, it's win-loss. And I've always wondered how that would affect the mentality of players. Because how does loss aversion work then if there's no such thing as a draw?
Well, first of all, I think NBA does still use win-loss records.
Is it still win-loss records?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. The NFL certainly does. MLS doesn't. They've fully embraced the league table system. I still think you're going to get teams playing a bit too carefully towards the end of a game. Because if there's no extra prize for winning in regulation as opposed to winning in overtime, which is to say, if you're playing a rival, you don't want that game to go to overtime because they're still going to get a point, they're still going to be hot on your heels in the title race or the playoff push. But if you can just beat them in overtime, they still get nothing. So I don't think there's any urgency at the end of a game. I think you can afford to wait for overtime and you can afford to wait for penalties. Because you still get your prize, but the opposition doesn't. There's no extra bonus to deny them anything by attacking earlier.
But what you sometimes see in the NFL is coaches reacting to that loss aversion from the other coach by pulling out a really ballsy play that catches the defense off guard because they thought, oh, I thought we were playing for up till overtime. I thought we were playing for the extra period, you know?
Yeah, I like that. The other thing I would potentially like to see a little bit more of is in some sports, play begins when the offense is ready. So as far as I'm concerned, when one player is ready for the face-off, everybody should be ready. That puck's getting dropped. If you're offside, penalty. If you're not lined up on your side of the puck, if you're not where you should be, let's get the game speeded up a bit. Let's just get on with it. If you're not ready, penalty.
The problem with that is
in rugby, if you've got a penalty and you want to tap it and go, you can tap it and go. You don't have to wait for the defence to get lined up. If you're ready, let's go. So if the linesman's ready and the forward's ready, that puck's getting dropped.
I think that would be my problem. The words you just used were there, if the linesman's ready. Often they're the people we're waiting for. You know, just getting them into position or finding out where the puck's gone. I do like that idea. The last thing I thought of, and this is kind of more... Because fighting is dying in hockey, and I know there are a myriad of people who have opinions and thoughts and all the rest of it. What if you got points-based scoring in hockey fights that resulted in actual points? So using the rules of boxing to actual hockey fights, which would then dictate how long or how short somebody's penalty was, or maybe there was an extra, point for it, or something like that. Like you actually judge the fights based on their pugilist merit, as it were.
So, if you lose the fight, it's a 5-minute major. If you win the fight, it's a 2-minute minor.
Yeah, something like that. Suddenly, your enforcer is a hero. Not only is he knocking out somebody who's very, very, probably important to the opposition, but because he's, absolutely laid him out, he's got him out there, and you got a 3-minute power play out of it. What a hero! All hail! The enforcer is back. They're important. And suddenly, fighting not only has a tactical kind of momentum-based importance, it actually has an importance to the outcome of the game in terms of that extended power play.
One more just to finish this off. Let's borrow some